I adjusted. Yeah. Just a minute ago, so yeah, take a minute. Okay, I think we're on Yud Zayin. Amud Bay is the bottom line. 17b. Bottom line. Amalei Ravina L'Rava. Yeah, we were discussing the importance of a date on a get.
Right.
We gave two reasons: the reason for Rabbi Yochanan and the reason for Rish Lakish. Rabbi Yochanan's reason was Shami Chapa al Basa Chesek. He may have married his niece and then she commits adultery, and in order to protect her from the death penalty, he would give her an undated document which she could use to say, "I was divorced already. I was divorced already at the time that she committed adultery," and that would protect her from the court. Reish Lakish's view was that the husband may continue to sell her property after the divorce, and she won't be able to claim that what are you doing to my, you're selling my stuff. Well, it's the produce from her property, which it's nichse malog, and he gets the peiros when they're married, and he continues to sell it, and he doesn't have any, she can't prove that it was hers, because the document's not dated, so we need a document. We need a date on the document. Well, Amalei Ravina L'Rava. Kasvei va'isvei bekiste. What happens if he wrote the get and he has it just in case she burns the dinner? He puts it in his pocket. Just mute it over here. Keeps it in his pocket just in case. He thinks it's going to be good for shalom bayis. The mefaisa tefayas, that if she appeases him, then in other words, he's holding off. It's really the opposite. It's really the opposite. It's really he wants to divorce her, but he's giving her another chance. Maybe she'll appease him.
She knows.
I'm sorry. 1 second. Does she know about it? Not necessarily. Well, what would be the din then? You see, the problem is that such a divorce, it's the date on it was written when the date is for when it was written, but he's holding it just in case.
Signed on the same day, but also
I know, but the date is on the writing of it, not on the signing of it. They date it in the writing. It's on the first line of the writing. Well, is such a document possible? So Amalei. This is Rava telling to Ravina, people don't prepare for punishment or for negative things like that. They don't set up. Getting divorced is something he would only do if he really needed to get divorced. So this is not something that we're going to make a decree over, and we're going to say that such a get would be valid, because it's so uncommon that we're not concerned about this happening often. Amalei Ravina Ravashi. Ravina says to Ravashi, that was Ravina before, Ravina speaking to a generation earlier, to Rava, or 2 generations earlier, because Ravina is under Rav Papa and Ravina Breda Rav Yeshua, and Rava was a teacher of them. And now it's Ravina speaking to Ravashi, who's his friend, or maybe a little younger. Gittin Daf Medina Sayam. What about a get that's written overseas and it's only delivered at 6 months later? Because at the travel time, it's not like they, what they call it, Concord. It's not like they can make it there the same day. It's going to take time to get there. So, what does it help that the rabbis instituted that the date in the document when she's not even divorced until 6 months later? So it's not going to help.
You're saying the date is meaningless.
Yeah, because if she would commit adultery during those 6 months, and then she shows up with the date, so he anyways protected her. Or she's going to claim against him that he wasn't allowed to be selling her produce when he really was, because she wasn't divorcing. Well, the Gemara says, "Amalei Hanu Kaleslo." Over there, it's not a problem because
He doesn't know about it.
because over there, there's a rumor or something. There's knowledge in town that there's a get that came from overseas. People know about it. She's gonna have to bring proof if she ever wants to make a claim, when the get was received. People aren't gonna just say that, oh, automatically look at the date, because people know about this, that it came from overseas. So it's a whole ordeal. So we're not concerned that maybe the date is gonna mess us up in such an instance. Okay, Itmar, we have a new statement. There's a new topic. There's a halacha that when a woman gets divorced, she has to wait 3 months until she can get remarried. And the reason for that is that we should know, no, it wasn't in the Mishnah. We should know who the paternal, who the parent is of the child that she has immediately after 9 months after the divorce. So we say that she should have 3 months delay, so that way we can know if this child is from the first husband or not. Well, when do you count from the get? Rava Mishas Nasina, you count those 3 months from the time the get was given. You count it from the date in the get, those 3 months. Maskal or Rav Nosson Bareshi L'Shmuel. Rav Nosson Bareshi has a question for Shmuel. What's going to be? Look, you have a guy that's going on a trip. He has 2 wives. Those days you're allowed to have 2 wives, right? So
That there was like a way out, like for a woman to get divorced. I think we learned this in Sota. Like she admits to, great fidelity or something like that. In which case, it's just a retroactive divorce, and she can marry like another guy or something.
she can marry another guy, but she has to wait 3 months.
Right. Yeah. So that's.
So here we're talking about that she's getting divorced and she wants to get remarried right away, but she can't because she has to wait 3 months. There's a rule, she has to wait 3 months. When do you calculate those 3 months? So it's a machlekes Rav and Shmuel. Rav says from the giving of the get. Shmuel says from the date in the get, from the time the get was written. Well, Rav Nosson Bareshi has a question to Shmuel. Let's say there's a guy that goes on a trip and he writes a divorce to his wife. And he writes one a month earlier. And then he writes another one right before he goes on the trip. He gives them both to them.
Oh, yeah.
He says you're divorced. He divorces both. He doesn't know if he's going to return. He doesn't want them to be stuck, whatever. So he gives them both a divorce. He comes back if he needs. He'll remarry them. It's not a big deal. He has an extra ring. So what's going to happen is 2 months later, one of them is going to get married, going to get remarried to someone else. Why? Because her document said that the get was written a month earlier. The other woman, her document was written on the day that he left. So it's going to come out that one of the women is mutter, one of them is usher. It's going to look funny that one woman is getting married after 2 months, one woman has to wait 3 months. This is right. So Amalei Abaya Zuzman Gita Mechiachala, Zuzman Gita Mechiachala. What are you worried about? It says clearly in the document. You're looking at this like what people are going to say, but everyone can look at the document and see the facts. The fact is that this one, the document was written a month earlier, and so that's fine. Tanya Kavasei the Rav, Tanya Kavasei the Shmuel. We have a brisa that supports Rav's view. We have a brisa that supports Shmuel's view. When do you start counting the 3 months after a divorce for her to get remarried? Tanya Kavasei the Rav, the brisa that supports Rav goes like this: Ashliach get lishtai. Someone sends a get to his wife, and Shliach b'derech k'mal chadashim. The shliach takes 3 months to get to the woman. It's a long trip, or maybe got distracted. Because she get liyada. Finally, when she gets the get, She has to wait 3 months from the time she receives the get. Not from the date in the get. The get yashan, what about an old get? There's a little bit of a problem. There's a problem with get yashan. Get yashan is when a man writes a get to his wife. He doesn't give it to her, and they live together. They're intimate. What happens is she may become pregnant from that. And then he gives her the get or whatever. And the get says in it an earlier date than when people start calculating when she became pregnant. It turns out that she became pregnant. She became pregnant after the get. Now, the get was written, and the date in the get is correct. It's just it wasn't given then. It wasn't a predated get. It was a get that was written that day. It just was given later. Meanwhile, they're together. She becomes pregnant, and people say that this child was born out of wedlock because they were already divorced then.
I don't see the point so much of the signing of the get. Shouldn't the signing be when the get is delivered? Shouldn't she sign the get or something so you know exactly when?
The get is written and signed always on the same day. It has to be signed on the same. When is it given? That could be another day.
It's not
All right, but then
it's given.
it's not. She's not divorced until it's given. But the signing needs to be on the same day that it's written. They have to attest to that on that day, right? That was our problem with what did the Mishnah say? It was nichtav b'yom.
Right. It could be signed, written and signed on one day, or written
Mishnah,
on
yeah.
one day and then the following night.
Right.
Signed.
B'yom b'nechtam b'layla is possible. It has to be signed on the same day that it was written.
There was an exception, I think, with get. Written on in the morning and signed at night.
Reb Shimon. According to Reb Shimon, that was an exception. Right?
Why did he throw it away? Why did he keep
the get?
and then deliver it at a later date? Why didn't he just burn it?
Get a new one? No, a get cost $600.
Yeah, but a mamzer costs a lot more.
Well, it's not a mamzer here. Here,
Not at all.
it's not at all because she was actually correct with being intimate with him. They were still married. She didn't get, the only thing is, when people look at the get and they say, let's see who this child is, they see that he was born after the divorce.
That's why you had to destroy the get.
Okay, so that's exactly the halacha. Halacha is that such a get you're not allowed to use. If they write a get and they're intimate, so that's a problem. So here we're saying that they wrote a get and 3 months later she receives it. But the Brisa says, don't worry about a get yashan. They were never together from then. The whole problem of a get yashan is that maybe there's going to be a baby that people are going to say was born out of wedlock, right? So then over here we're not concerned because they were never together. Because remember, he went somewhere else and he sent the get and whatever they were, he wasn't there. Okay.
We're concerned a lot about people talking.
Yeah.
Did people really talk like that?
I don't know.
I mean, they talk about other people, but I don't know. Maybe back then.
Shalom Aleichem books in here, like what?
Yeah, you think that's a new invention?
So, look, they had mikvahs back then also. There's a lot of schmoozing. So, Tanya Kavasei de Shmuel. We have a Bryce that supported. We had a Bryce here that supported Rav, that the counting first starts after she receives the get. Now we have a Bryce that supports Shmuel. The Bryce says, "Hamashlish get liishtay." Someone that gives over a get to a third party, mashlish, gives it over to a third party. And he says to this third person, give it to her after 3 months. He says, I'm going away, maybe deliver the get after 3 months. As soon as she receives it, she can immediately go ahead and get married. That's a support to Shmuel. Why? Because the get was written 3 months earlier, and we start counting from the time the get was written. The 3 months start from the writing of the get, not from the delivery of the get. And don't worry about a get yashan, which is an old get, because that's only if they're intimate. but he was not in it. They weren't intimate, so it's no problem. Well, Rav Kana, Rav Papa, Rav Ashi, Avdi, Mishas Ksiva, Rav Kana, Rav Papa, and Rav Ashi, they followed the opinion of Shmuel, and they counted 3 months for anyone that asked them from the time of the writing of the get. Rav Papa, Rav Huna, Breder, Rav Yeshua, Avdi, Mishas Nesina, they went like Rav. They paskened from the time of the delivery of the get. The Hilchas Mishas Ksiva, however, the halacha is like Shmuel, that the paskin, which opinion, Rav Ashi, that says that you go to, that you only count from the time of the writing. Yeah, if it would have been a get, if the concern that maybe there was that maybe they were together after the writing of the get, then that would have invalidated the get anyway. So obviously they weren't together. So really the counting can really start from the writing of the get if this is a valid get. Anyway, okay. New topic. Itmar. You have a statement of Amiraim. Me'imasai ksuva shametas. You know, Shemitah comes and all the loans are absolved, right? So if a woman is a widow and she's living on her husband's property, and she has a ksuba that she could collect anytime. Ksuba would mean a certain amount of money, cash value she can take, but she doesn't take it. She's living there indefinitely on this property. She can live there as long as she wants until she decides that she wants that ksuba. She takes the ksuba, then she moves out of the property and she lives on her own. But if she's just living there, she gets her. So anyway, Shemitah comes along. Does Shemitah absolve the debt of the ksuba? So it says that no. It's only when the ksuba is restructured into a debt. So it works like this. When does it become a debt? Rav Amar Mishatifka and V'tiska. 2 things. First of all, you have to collect a little bit. If she says, I want to start collecting the ksuba, and then they work out a payment plan. And so when they work out that payment plan, after she takes her first installment, and then they work out a payment plan, so then it's now considered a regular debt, and Shemitah comes along and absolves it. Yeah. Sometimes in Besdin they work out these payment plans for people that lose the case. So that's considered a regular debt. And all the halachas of collecting a debt apply to that. You know, you're not allowed to harass the person, and this halachas, if someone has a debt, you're not allowed to you're not even allowed to appear in front of him to make him uncomfortable.
Wow.
You can't. It's complicated. It becomes very difficult halachically to collect the debt. You're not allowed to go start taking items from him.
With another year, though.
With another year, yeah. So if something turns into a debt, then it becomes complicated. Shmuel Amar, and especially in those days, Shemitah would come and absolve it. Or even today, possibly Shemitah absolves it, right? And so we say we give over the debt to the best, and we do a crucible.
Someone owes you something, they can't repay, you let it go.
Well, you don't have to let it go, but it becomes complicated to collect. It doesn't mean you're meichelet. Meichelet means okay, don't worry about it, don't pay me back. Look, I'm waiting, but there's nothing I can do. You just, stand in line. So, Shmuel says, Pagma af pishlei zakva, zakva af pishlei pagma. Once she collects, even if they did not work out a payment plan, did not restructure it, or if they restructured it, that there is a payment plan, even if she didn't collect any installment yet, it's automatically considered a debt. And then Shemitah will, so Shmuel is more giving of the Shemitah laws. Shmuel will apply the Shemitah laws quicker than Rav will, because according to Rav, you need both your first installment plus a restructuring of the debt. Tani Kavasei the Rav, Tani Kavasei the Shmuel. There's a brisa that supports Rav, there's a brisa that supports Shmuel, exactly like we said before. There's a brisa that supports Rav and a brisa that supports Shmuel regarding the 3 months. Tanika v'seider Rav, we have a brayso that supports Rav. Meima say ksuba mishametes. When does the ksuba mishametes means become absolved because of the shmita? How do they translate it there? Forfeited or something? Canceled. When does the ksuba get canceled because of shmita? Easy word. Mishatifkan v'tiskef. Exactly what Rav says, the Brisa says, that when she collects her first installment, tifka means she dents the ksuba. That means she takes a little bit of the payment. But tiskef is a shortened expression. Tiskef alav b'milva, you stand it up as a debt, and we're just shortened. It's referring to a longer phrase. Tiskef means it's restructured. Pagma v'lei zakva, zakva v'lei pagma. Let's say you did only one of those. You took an installment, but you didn't restructure it, or you restructured it, but you didn't take an installment. It doesn't get canceled until it's both first installment, indented, and it's also been restructured. We have a brayso that supports Shmuel. It goes like this. It says, Oines, v'knas, upitoi. Oines is the payment that a man has to pay if he raped the girl. To pay 50 coins. Knas is if he claims that she wasn't a virgin after the first night he was with her. Upitoi, or if he was mefata her, she was a young girl and he seduced her, he has to pay to the father 50 coins. Ksubasisha, and now that's what we were looking for. Ksubasisha, shazakvan b'milva, that they were restructured into a loan. Mishamtin, they get canceled by Shemitah. So according to this brayso, just the restructuring of it, even without any installment, already turns it into a loan, and Shemitah affects. Vim lav, but if not, ein meshamtin. It doesn't get canceled by Shemitah. Me'im esayin iskafim b'milva. When is it considered restructured? Mishas hamada badin. Once they go to court and they say, okay, let's work out a payment plan. So that, how do they translate over there? I'm sure that's. Yeah, when they stand in trial. That means to restructure the loan, the ksuba into a loan. So then that's already considered a loan, and then they have to. Then it gets canceled by Shemitah. Amar Shmuel. Shmuel says ksuba k'maisa bezdin damya. Maisa bezdin is a document, a ruling that the bezdin does. So Shmuel says that a ksuba is just like a maisa bezdin. That document is, what is it? A court enactment. It's like a court enactment, which means a court enactment. You're allowed to write it by day and sign it at night because it doesn't really affect a lien or anything like that. That should be anything should change. Also, a ksuba could be written by day and signed at night. Now the problem is that a ksuba does affect a lien and other things, properties. So we'll figure this out in a moment. Ksubasi de Rab Chia Barav. Rab Chia Barav was getting married and he had a ksuba. It was written by day, signed at night. Rav was there. Rav didn't say anything. He was fine with it. It's going to be a good father-in-law. It's not mixing in. Well, maybe should we say that he holds like Shmuel that says that there's no issue of writing by day and signing by night. This was Shmuel's opinion, and Rav holds like that. Well, asukim by Indian havo. This means is that they were involved in working out the ksuba the entire day, and they never took a break. So, which means that the shibud of the ksuba starts even when they sign it at night. It starts from the time that the discussions began, and because, in other words, the actual signing of it is attesting to everything that had taken place earlier that day. So, which means that there is no problem with this document being with the date on it by day, because that's exactly what they're attesting to, that everything took place that day. However, if they would have not been a sukkah by Sinyan, if they would have taken a pause, then when you sign on it later, then that's a problem, because it may not be attesting to that original discussion.
Many of the weddings
Right, which is fine. Here we're talking about where it got signed at night and the writing of it was by day. And so the date in it is off. Over there, they signed it by
How do you
day.
sign something that was?
No. The ksuba is written and then it gets signed. Now, what the ksuba is an agreement that the husband's going to pay certain things to his wife in case of divorce and also his requirements as a husband, but he has to provide her with. Now, when does he accept that? So he can accept it before the marriage as well. And it would only be a requirement when they get married, but he says, when we get married, this is my requirement. It's not a marriage document, it's a monetary document of his requirements. So
It's become that way nowadays.
but nowadays we talk about it like, oh, you ksuba, okay, married.
Yeah.
But it's really a monetary document. Now, a monetary document, you can accept those obligations whenever. So, but the problem is that you shouldn't have a document that's written on one day and signed on another day, because it only takes effect. And he says, no, over here it's taking effect on the day that it was written because they were a sukkah by Sinyan. It's just attesting to the whole conversation. They said, okay, how much do you agree to pay at the time of a divorce? It says $10,000. Said, we want 20,000. Okay, 15. It says, but make it 17. So at the end they signed on it, and even though all of that was written beforehand.
But how does that fit with what we learned before about it? All these
By a
documents
get.
being,
By a get, it had to be signed on the same day that it was written by a ksuba, and it doesn't need to. Just like a Maisa Besdin. That's what we're learning now. The Tanya, and it was taught in the Brisa, Amar Rabbi Elazar bar Rabbi Tzadok, or maybe Rabbi Elazar bar Rabbi Yitzchak. Leishanu el k'sheina sukim by Sinyan. Aval sukim by Sinyan kasher. If they were involved, in other words, the Edom were ready to sign the whole time. It's only they had to finish something. So they ended up signing by night. That doesn't affect the validity of the document. Okay. Reb Shimon Machshir. Reb Shimon said that even by a get, if it was written by day and signed by night, it was kosher. That was the opinion that we had from Reb Shimon. This is Reb Shimon Yochai in the Mishnah. Amar Rav, my time with the Reb Shimon. What is the reason for Reb Shimon? It could be problematic. It's written on another day. She could have possibly become pregnant, and then it's signed later, and she wasn't really divorced till later, and that's going to look bad that this child was born not during the marriage. It was conceived not during the marriage. Well, I'm sorry. The concern was more of the selling of the fruits. The selling of the fruits. He's going to continue selling the fruits until, and she won't be able to claim it back because what's going to happen is he's going to sell the fruit. He's not going to be able to sell the fruits. She's going to claim the fruits unrightfully from him because the document says a day earlier. And her claim is only from the next day when it was actually signed. Well, the Rabbi explains, once he writes the document, he loses the fruits anyway. So her claim against him for selling the fruits is actually accurate. Rish Lakish says, and Reb Shimon says that you can write a document by day and sign it by night. That's only if it was immediately signed that night. However, but you don't have 10 days. You can't just write a document and wait 10 days. Why? If you have a concern, maybe he's going to live with her. And then it's going to be what we call the get yashan, an old get. And the get yashan is when it was written but not delivered, and they live together. We're on 18b. And that was going to affect the rumors about the child, that it looks like the child was born after they were divorced.
A lot of this could be avoided if she signed the get when she received it. There was some like signature of receipt. Maybe.
No, because here. All of this concern is because the people are actually seeing the date in the get. Where are they seeing the date in the get? In the court files? Where she hung up the get somewhere for everyone to see. The witnesses must have, when they read the get, they must have read the get out loud, or the date, and people. The date is on top. But this whole concern that people are going to say that she was divorced before this baby was conceived is a concern of rumors. When did these rumors start? The rumors started either when the Adam signed on it, or the rumors start at the Adam start rumors. That's because there's people there. It was done in public. So they say, oh, where were you? Oh, you should have seen, I was over there, they like talk about it. So I guess what's happening is the Adam signed no, we're talking about it gets signed by night. So if there was a regular get that was written and signed by day, but it wasn't delivered for 10 days or whatever, and meanwhile, or a month, meanwhile, they were intimate and she conceived, then that would be a problem, because I have witnesses that are attesting to the writing of when the get was written. Say, 1 second, how does this calculate? It's supposed to be 270 days or something, 9 months, and it's not 270 days from the. This is 290 days. The get was. So what happened over here? Okay, so. But that's when it was signed by day. But over here, we're talking about signing it later. So how does anyone start a rumor about the date in the document being affected? I'm just asking, Cheshin and Shemapias, that maybe they were intimate after this, and then there's going to be a rumor. I'm just asking, like, how did that rumor start? The witnesses only showed up 10 days later.
When the agent signed, don't they put a date next to this?
No. There's no date on the Adam signature. And so what is it going to be that the rumors are going to be from 10 days earlier, that she was really divorced 10 days earlier? Yitzi put up that today is the first day Daf Yomi was learned in Alabama. It's a historic day.
Mobile, Alabama?
No, Birmingham.
Birmingham?
Figured.
That Torah is learned.
Yeah, there must have been people in Alabama.
Yeah.
Yeah, there were communities there. Yeah. In Mobile? Okay. So this, it's basically people beat you to it.
Isn't it where they had the burning? Is that in Mobile? Where was that famous, the burning? It's on Mississippi. No.
Wasn't Torah anyway.
Okay. Rabbi Yochanan says that Reb Shimon was lenient, and he says, "Afilu mikan v'ad asar yama." So there's basically a machlekes Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish. How much time you have to sign the get according to Reb Shimon? It doesn't need to be on the same day according to Reb Shimon. Rish Lakish says, okay, it doesn't need to be on the same day, but it needs to be that night. Rabbi Yochanan says, no, even 10 days is good. It means the PS. And if, you got to hear this one, and if they made up, then people would have known that they made up. And people are going to know that they were back together and that there's not a problem. You see, Rashi explains that because they're getting divorced, so we know what's going on in the house, there's a lot of fighting. There's always shouting all night and all day. So all of a sudden the shouting stops. So the people start talking. Shouting stops. You should see. It's nice and peaceful. You can walk by the house and you don't hear all the noise, all the commotion. So then everyone would know that the get was never delivered until later. So that would have been a rumor. That would have been we would know, and because of the shouting. So the concern that maybe it was a get yashan isn't a real problem, because if you're concerned about a get yashan, everyone knows that it's a get yashan.
Well, there's some relationship.
We were hearing shouting the whole time. For 10 days. So there's no get yashin. We know that they weren't intimate. They were hollering at each other.
That could have been a normal
Yeah,
marriage.
yeah. There's some relationships where like they don't even speak to each other.
Typical normal dysfunction.
They're saying that that's a normal dysfunctional marriage. I don't know. Rashi apparently didn't think of that. Okay, Itmar. We have a statement, another statement. Amrla Sarah, Kisvu get lishti. This is a strange fellow. He says to 10 people, write a get for my wife. Maybe he wants to embarrass her that like everyone should know. It's like he wants, instead of 2 people signing on it, he wants like everyone to sign on it. What's going on over here? Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan says, Shnayim mishamedim. 2 of them make the document valid as witnesses. The other 10, the kulam misham tanai. The other 10 or the other 8 are really just there because he made a stipulation that he wants this get to be with another 8 people signing on it. That's just tanai. You could have made any tanai. You could have said this was your get if you jump on your, stand on your head or something. He made a condition that this is your get, but the 10 people need to sign it. Okay, that's a tanai. No, they all become witnesses. Follow? They're all witnesses.
I
What's
thought
going on?
once you have 2 valid witnesses, and things, you don't go further.
Right. But here he said he wants 10 witnesses. They all have the halacha of being witnesses, according to Rabbi Yochanan. According to Rish Lakish. Echidami, what's the case? If he didn't say all of you, so then you only need 2 people to sign if he didn't say all of you to sign. You just say, if he tells 10 people, write a get for my wife. So he was giving instructions to a lot of people. It's not a good idea because everyone's going to think the other one is going to do it. But he didn't mean all of you need to do this. He meant just make sure it gets done.
I'm surprised that they're even talking about this in the first place. Usually it's kind of like a private thing that you don't want to advertise. Hey, I'm divorced.
He
No.
wanted to embarrass.
He probably wants to embarrass her.
Well, he's doing it to himself too.
Yeah, but people don't mind getting hurt as long as the other person gets hurt.
It's further more.
Get hurt or more.
Further more.
I thought it was herder.
I know, that's what I'm joking. Playing
Okay.
words.
So kiss forget list. So it must be it must be that he told them all of you. So he was actually giving instructions, all of you. My binayu. What's the difference now between Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish? One of them says they're witnesses, one of them says it's a stipulation. But the fact is, if they don't all do it, so they didn't fulfill the stipulation, it's invalid. They don't all do it, then you don't have the witnesses there signing, so that's invalid. So what's the difference between them? Well, it could be nayad the chasam beitrei minayu, yoimei, vinich mikan vanasar yamin. Let's say 2 of them signed on time today. The other 8 said, I don't have time right now to sign. I'll sign later. They signed 10 days later. Well, mandam mishum tanai. If it was a stipulation, the other 8, so the kosher, that's going to be a good get because it was already kosher. It's just a stipulation. It's going to be a get if you stand on your head, if you whatever, if you whatever you do. So if you get another 8 people to sign, they got another 8 people. It gets valid. Mandam mishum edim. If it needs to be witnesses, according to Rish Lakish, then it's possible because the get was written not on the same day that it was signed. Now, if you remember Rish Lakish's opinion that even according to Reb Shimon, you only have that night, you don't have 10 days later. Even Reb Shimon wouldn't agree that this is good. Because we had a machlekes before Reb Yochanan and Rish Lakish. What was Reb Shimon's opinion? Do you have just that immediate that night that you can sign, or do you have 10 days? Rabbi Yochanan said 10 days. Rish Lakish said no, you only have that night. So here they signed it 10 days later. Everyone would say it's possible. Inami, another difference between Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish. Let's say that 2 of these witnesses, 2 of the 10, are relatives, the brothers or something. If it's a condition, so kosher, it's a big deal. You can say anything and as a stipulation. But if it's all witnesses, then it's going to be puzzled because you can't have witnesses that are related. If they signed, if they're the first two, so then Amila Kasha, Amila Pasal. Then some said that it was kosher, some said that it was pasal. Amila Kasha, the one that says that it was kosher, Tanayu. Why is it kosher? Because even though they signed first, but so what? That's only part of the stipulation. Amila Pasal, the one that says that it's invalid, then we have a concern that even though it's a Tanai, but we have a concern that maybe people are going to think that you're allowed to use relatives as witnesses. Because they're signing first. Right, brother and brother.
Is it going to get into like the reasons someone could marry? I mean, so someone could divorce.
That's going to be at the end. Yeah, you got to wait a long time. Yeah, that's going to be the end about when. But yeah, that maybe the Masechta should have started with that. Yeah.
Don't worry.
They said someone said that there was this person that wasn't finding a shidduch. Like years were going by, and then someone told them, said, you know, if it doesn't work out, you could get divorced. He got married like a month later. You know, the stress of
worried about what if.
The stress was too much for him. They told him that. It's like, oh, okay. I don't know. That's a good question. They still married. That's a good question. But it's like this, like people are like with investments and things. There's people that they can't invest. They can't. You know, it's like
that's
like I might lose. You know. So they have to be like, okay, if I lose, I try again. You know. That'll be tough. Okay, who damalu la Sarah? Someone said to 10 people, kiss for get lishti. He said, actually, all of you should write a get for my wife. Well, two of the people wrote, signed it properly on the day that it was said. And the other one signed 10 days later. Oh, they come to Rabbi Shua ben Levi. Shua ben Levi. I know, but he means all of you should be involved in the get, which means all of you should be signing on. Yeah. Well, they come to Rabbi Shua ben Levi. Shua ben Levi, somewhere in Eretz Yisrael. I don't remember exactly where he lived. Does it say in any comments where Rabbi Shua ben Levi lived? It was in Eretz Yisrael. They come to Rabbi Shua ben Levi. Amalei.
Eretz Yisrael.
Okay. Usually, Rabbi Shua ben Levi is not being quoted as a paisik, you know, that he was the one that was sitting there and they come to him with the shaila. Rabbi Shua ben Levi was the one that with all the Haggadahs, he's talking to Eliyahu Navi, he's explaining psukim.
According to tradition,
yeah, he entered the Gan Eden alive. He took the sword. Anyway, he says the famous statement, Kedayu Reb Shimon lismach ala b'shas adchak. You can rely on Reb Shimon in desperate times, which means that because they signed later, so it's considered up to 10 days, it's acceptable. According to Reb Shimon, who said that pshat in Reb Shimon? Was Reb Yochanan. Reb Yochanan's pshat in Reb Shimon that you have 10 days to sign. If it was written by day, you have 10 days to sign, not just that night, not like Rish Lakish. Problem is, but what about Rish Lakish? He said, well, don't worry about that. But he Reb Yochanan's really, he holds like Reb Yochanan. It's a machlokes, and you can't ask me a kasha from Rish Lakish because I don't hold the Rish Lakish. I hold the Reb Yochanan. According to Reb Yochanan, you don't need this whole thing. You don't have to rely on Reb Shimon. Reb Yochanan said it's anyways kosher. You know what's going on over here? Reb Yochanan says that Reb Shimon holds you have 10 days. Reb Shua ben Levi says we're relying on Reb Shimon according to Reb Yochanan. Problem is, if someone says 10 people to sign the document, Reb Yochanan holds that 2 of them are witnesses, others are only a stipulation. How long do you have to fill the stipulation? However long you want, because it's a stipulation. So why does Reb Shua ben Levi say that he's relying on Reb Shimon According to Rabbi Yochanan, which he's accepting Rabbi Yochanan's view and Rabbi Shimon, according to Rabbi Yochanan, you don't need Rabbi Shimon. It's only a stipulation. It was signed already by day. The other witnesses are not the other signatures are not witnesses. It's just a stipulation.
This Reb Shimon Bar Yochai.
Yeah, Reb Shimon of the Mishnah. The Gemara says, "Bahikar Reb Shimon Tzvirlei." No. It says that when Bahikar Reish Lakish Tzvirlei, it says that in the Machlekes Rabbi Yochanan and Reish Lakish about the 10 witnesses that are signing, Rabbi Shimon Levi holds like Reish Lakish, that they're all witnesses. In the Machlekes and how long Rabbi Shimon gives you, they hold like Rabbi Yochanan. He holds like Rabbi Yochanan. Yeah, so don't just say, "Oh, what are you doing?" You know, if you hold like Rabbi Moshe's psak with Cholav Stam, that also means that your mechitza needs to be 10 tvachim. So no, I hold like this and this one psak, like well, it depends. Pick and choose, like who in each shaila. Okay. New Mishnah, Bakol Kaisvin, you can use any sort of ink to write the get. B'diyai, you can use an ink. B'sam, you can use a type of paint. B'sikra, you can use this red ink. B'kumas, you could use a resin. B'kankantem, you can use this copper sulfate, which is not erasable. B'chol davar shushal kayam, anything that lasts. In Kaisvin, you're not allowed to use leib b'mashkin. You can't use like juice liquids to write the, which you can see temporarily. Even if you use water, you can write on things, but it disappears when it dries. Disappearing ink.
We're all thinking like when the kids would spritz on your white shirt.
Right. Although
my grandkids still do that to me.
Oh really?
Yeah, they think it's funny. I get Shabbos and Shabbos.
It is funny.
Apparently, when I was a kid, I had it, but when I ruined the shirt because I poured like a leak, the whole bottle. It wasn't it only works if it's a little spritz. Yeah. He's talking about that ink, the Purim joke, they spritz you. Okay. Paris, and not with fruit juices. Not anything that doesn't last. Ala kol kaisin, you can use any type of paper. We switched now from ink to paper. Ala ola shel zayis, you can use an olive leaf. That's very small. No, maybe it means that they sewed it together. Olive leaves are tiny, but
There's a note.
What does it say?
The example of an olive leaf is used to teach that the substance on which the bill of divorce is written must also be permanent. If one wrote it on something that does not last at all, such as an onion skin or vegetable peels, then it is invalid.
Oh. So in the note, it's coming to tell me that in the olive leaf is coming to teach me that it needs to be something that lasts, but it can't be on an onion skin or something like that because that will disintegrate, or vegetable peels.
That's interesting because the dog, an olive branch and Syria with leaves on it, and it's the symbol in Israel for true peace, but it should last.
Right.
Unfortunately, it's only short term.
What
The peace to the Arabs to send the missile.
Uh-huh.
But we want.
A quick question.
Yeah.
You mentioned that today the get is always written in front of Beis Din. So presumably a lot of these issues don't come up because Beis Din is there. They're making sure it's done right. But
Right.
Is that presently a requirement that the get must be written in front of Beis Din?
No, it doesn't need to be an embedment. A get could be written by the cipher and two witnesses, but they always have like a masader gittin because someone has to tell the cipher. Cipher is just has a good handwriting. Not necessarily does he know Hilchas Gittin. Someone has to tell him you have to write this, you have to write that, and but the instructions the cipher can do it. So
all the issues we've been discussing for the last couple of days really would not come up anymore because it's presumably it's going to be done right.
yeah, but the reason why it doesn't come up is because the Masader learned Daf Yud Zayin, Yud Ches, Yud Tes, and Gittin, so he knows what to do.
So for example, if you were based in, you would not allow someone to designate more than 2 witnesses.
Right.
And
Yeah,
you would
we
not,
maybe don't do any conditions in Gittin.
and you would not allow multiple signatures on the document.
Right. But we don't do any conditions. Even if someone wanted to make a condition, there was one story that they had, though I wasn't in this Besdin, but the rabbi told us that there was someone that was getting a surgery that could make him, if it didn't go well, it was a brain surgery. If it didn't go well, he would be, it would be a vegetable. He wouldn't be able to, and he didn't want his wife to be in that situation because he wouldn't be able to give her a get, and it could just have to hang around. So he wrote her. He didn't want to give her a get because he was a kohen, and he can't be married to her. So he, maybe the case was a kohen. I'm getting confused, but this would have been a case where a condition would have worked. And even though today we don't do a condition, but could be in such a situation, it's like an impossible situation because you don't know what's going to happen after the surgery.
I knew a person like that almost 40 years ago. He wrote, "I cannot condition whatever because he wanted his wife to be,
Right. Be stuck.
with him."
Right.
We've learned, or we've spoken about predated get that are given by a soldier.
Yes,
And
that
we-
was not predated. That's an actual get.
So
When they
what
come-
happens when the soldier
Okay.
lives if that's an actual get?
Either they get remarried or it was al tanai, or it was on a condition.
On a
That if-
condition that it's only effective if he subsequently dies?
Right. Or they can't find him or something like that.
Uh-huh. It
Yeah,
seems
that
like
was-
that's a,
That wasn't predated. That was an actual get that was written and signed and delivered probably on the same day,
but then he shows up, he lives, Baruch Hashem, and he comes back, and now he's a divorced
Either he
man.
married her, or the get was given on condition and it wasn't valid.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay. So, but giving a get on condition is another way of predating it. Right?
No, because when you give a get on condition, what happens is it's retroactive, takes effect from that date.
Right.
It's not a date that's a get that's predated, where this gets confusing, that they're actually divorced then, but the get was written earlier. No, the divorce from whenever the date is in the get.
And that's deemed to have, a get on Tanai is deemed to have a coal in the community?
I guess so. You had witnesses signing,
Yeah.
right? Anything with witnesses is going to have a call.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Valkeren Shalpari, you can write it on the horn of a cow. That's not so easy to write on, but yeah, we had a problem with this because if you cut it off afterwards, then there's a interruption between writing it and giving it. That was the problem. It has to be the nasan biyada. Has to be immediately that because of lovin.
Be cut
Say
off
for
and
Christmas,
then-
it has to be ready to be given. So what do you do here if you write it on the horn of a cow? Nice and less the party, you have to give it the whole cow because you can't cut it off. If you cut it off, then so she's going to end up with a cow. Al yad shel eved, nice and less eved. He could write it on the hand of his slave, and you give us the whole slave,
Like a tattoo.
right? Yeah. Are you allowed to put a tattoo on a non-Jew? Well, your slave would have been Jewish. You wouldn't be allowed to. Yeah, I was in the car with my kid. That was in the back seat in the car seat, and there was this guy in like a truck, with his arms on the window. And my son, 3 years old, puts up. He says, "How come he wrote all over his arms?" No. Thinking like what the teacher says, don't write on your arms. He's thinking like that's what happened. Okay. So Rabbi Yossi Glili Aimer, Ein Kaisen Le'al Davar Sheish B'Ruach Chaim V'Le'al Eichel. It was not a get, no.
What do you need if your son said, hey, that's a get, he wrote.
This is this guy's really desperate to get divorced, right?
Yeah. This guy's really desperate to get divorced. This happens sometimes for weddings where they don't have a ring. They take anyone have anything. They take like they have to take a key. Like, okay, that's a ring. Like not at our chuppahs, whatever. So Rabbi Yosef Glili's opinion is that you can't write on anything. We'll have to see in the Gemara why, but anything that's alive, or you can't write it on food. Okay. Diyai, what does it mean that we said ink? That's the use of, that's just the Aramaic ink. Sam, you can't write on this paint. That's Sam in Aramaic. Sikra, what is Sikra? We said that was a red ink. Amarav Varchana Sikarta, Shema, it's called Sikarta. Okay, that's Aramaic. Kumas, this resin, it's called Kuma in Aramaic. Kankantim, what is Kankantim? Which we said is copper sulfate. Amarav Barbarchana, Amar Shmuel, Chadet, Charsa de Ushkefi. It's the shoe polish that the shoemaker used, a cobbler. It has to be something that lasts. What are you coming to teach me? That it needs to last. You told me a bunch of things. It's coming to teach what Reb Chanina taught. Reb Chanina was a teacher of Rabbi Yochanan, student of Rebbe. He taught that kasvu b'meitaria v'after it's kosher. If you use meitaria and you use gallnuts, it's going to be kosher. What is meitaria? Rashi has a few pshatim. One is if you use rainwater, kasha, rainwater. Why does that last? So some say that maybe it was the rainwater that dripped through the roof that picked up some sort of coloring to it. Or meitaria is the water that fruits were soaked in it, which is similar to afatzim, which is gallnuts. Whatever the case is, it's other things that also last. And after is actually gallnuts itself. Okay. Tani Rab Chia. Rab Chia taught. Kasvu ba'avar. If you wrote it with lead. B'shichar, with coals. Shachar maybe. B'shichar. And with this black paint, that the shoe polish. That's all of that is kosher. Itmar. Got a statement from Amirayim, looks like we're changing topics, but really not. Talking about Hilchas Shabbos now. If something written in red ink, the scarlet letter, and you went and you covered it over colored it in black. Yeah, it was written in red and you cut, and it's on Shabbos. You're not allowed to write on Shabbos, but it was already written. So what you're doing here is you're erasing the red and you're writing it in black. Rabbi Yochanan Reish Lakish Tavai Chayiv Stein. Rabbi Yochanan Reish Lakish say you Chayiv too. One, because you erased, because you wrote on top of the red, and the other one for writing, because you wrote it in black.
How is writing on top of something erased if it's still here underneath?
I know, but erasing doesn't only mean scratching off. It means anything that you can't see would be erasing. Even covering it over would be erasing. Achas mishum kaisav, achas mishum meichik. One is because of writing, and one's because of erasing. Diol gabi dioi. Let's say it was already written and you're just tracing the letters. Sikra gabi sikra. It was red or on top of red, or it was black on top of black. Potter, that's potter. Sikra gabi dioi. But let's say you put red on top of black. Now again, the superior quality ink is black. It's inferior to use the red ink. Well, let's say you put red on top of black. So amila chayiv, amila potter. Some say that you chayiv, some say that you potter. Amila chayiv, one that says you chayiv meichaku. That's considered erasing the superior quality ink. Amila potter, the one that say that you potter. Mekalkalo. That's not chayiv. That's ruining. When is erasing chayiv? That's only if you're preparing it to write something new. It has to be erasing in order to be able to write. Otherwise, it's just mekalkal. Mekalkal means destructive. And on Shabbos, you never chayiv for any destructive act unless it's with the intention to redo it. Like breaking down a house on Shabbos is usher. That's because you want to rebuild. But if it's just some destructive, it's just to break something, it's not chayiv. Okay. Boy mine Reish Lakish me Rabbi Yochanan. Reish Lakish is mekalkal midrabanan. I'm not sure. He definitely potter.
Sharach also, there's no problem whatsoever, right? when
Well,
you
certain
rip
thing-
open all these. things
Yeah,
to
those
take
are
out
those
the-
are considered just garbage. Those the bags, papers, things are just considered garbage. The only problem with ripping is there if it's ripping on
On the words.
a word or on a defined mark where you're trying to cut. Like you can't tear the paper towels or the toilet paper on the line. And then there's another problem of tearing if it's been two things that were attached. According to the Alter Rebbe, you can't separate two things that were glued together. That's why Chabad there's a problem with taking the yogurt things off because it's glued. You have to like cut it out. Yeah. Anyway. I can imagine opening all your yogurts before Shabbos. This sounds like a mess. You know,
But you can stamp it with a.
yeah, and you can cut it out. Yeah. Okay, or you can rely on other opinions. I don't know. That's not a problem. The dips is a problem. Yeah. Or you can rely on the other opinions, or if you want to follow the Alter Rebbe. Yeah. Edim that don't know how to sign, what do? You don't know how to sign their name. And those are the guys that you have. You have to write a quick get. The guy agreed right now. And you don't have witnesses there that can sign. So can you write, can the scribe write their name in red ink and let them trace over it because the red ink isn't kosher. When they trace over it, which basically it's like a stencil, it'd be like an outline for them. It'd be perfect. So can you do that? Ksav Elia in Ksav. Writing on top of it, is that considered a writing or not? Amalei, Ksav, it's not considered signing. It's not good. Amalei, so they tell Rish Lakish says Rabbi Yochanan, but you said on Shabbos you're gonna be chayiv. Amalei, he says to him, because we said that you have to be strict about this on Shabbos, does that mean you could be lenient about it regarding a get? I didn't say that you're really chayiv. I just said it could be that you're chayiv. You have to be strict. That doesn't mean that you can now take this and be lenient and say that you can write over red ink and it's considered a real writing for a get. Okay, Itmar, another statement. Edim she'yedim lachtim. Witnesses that don't know how to sign. Rav says, you make a stencil. You cut the letters out and they could just fill it in and it's going to be perfect. There's a whole shaila about the stencil, Sifrei Torah. The whole discussion. Someone made, I forget what type of stencil it's. There's a silk. What's it called? Silk screen.
Silk screen.
Silk screen. The whole shaila about that.
Silk screen.
There was a Rav Abadi. It was matter the silk screen. It became very big machlekes.
What?
You can make a Sefer Torah perfect with using the silk screen, but you don't have to actually write it. You put the screen
each page.
Yeah, you just put the screen on and they just like paint over it and it comes out perfect. It was like a quick way, a cheaper way to make a Sefer Torah. Well, you make the mold, you make the what's
You
it
have to
called?
make one for each.
They do the whole Torah like that. They just do the whole thing, just like paint down the thing. Just line up the thing and just. So yeah, most of the poskim hold that has to be written. But here, what about the signature of the Adam? Now a signature, we usually write a legible signature. You write the name, but officially signatures do not need to be legible, right? There are people that say, "What does that say?" I don't know. That's my signature. So right in the bank, it doesn't have to be legible. You just be whatever it is. You just have to be consistent. Right. Rabbi Steinsaltz gave me a book, and he wrote something in it. He said, "It's what it says is whatever you want it to say." You could just imagine whatever it is. Yeah. Okay. He gave me a tillim with his commentary. I was lucky. I was in Israel and I was with, he had a nephew that was his, was my friend. So he said, come, I'm going to visit my uncle. I said, okay, I'm coming along. So and it was very cool.
And he said you're not an average Lubavitcher.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. I asked him then a question that I had a question. Rabbi Akiva, when in Makkas, the Gemara says that Rabbi Akiva and his friends were walking over the mountain, and it says his friends cried because they saw a fox on the Temple Mount, and Rabbi Akiva laughed. So he said that if this prophecy was fulfilled, then the next prophecy would be fulfilled. I said, did that story take place before the Bar Kokhba revolt, or did it take place after the Bar Kokhba revolt? If it took place after, then that means that he would have that it wasn't his anticipation of the Bar Kokhba revolt that he was laughing. He felt that we were going to get rid of the Romans and all of that. So he told me that the story actually took place before the revolt, based on the people that were there. But he still would have laughed even after the revolt. So it's like both sides of it. Anyway, okay. So question over here is.
Who was that on the phone? Remind me of the story.
This is Yitzi. Yeah, professor's
And
asking.
just let me know where you finish because I'm taking off in a minute.
Okay. Okay. I'm going to stop soon. I wanted to get till Kamash Malan, but I have to run because I have an event this morning. Okay, I'll send you a text. It goes like this. Rob says you can make a stencil. Now, some say that it's not really a stencil. It's a thing underneath it, and you write on top of it. It's not like they would put a paper under it to just copy it, as opposed to actually filling it in. Sounds like it's being filled in with ink. Shmuel Amar ba'avar. Shmuel says that you can use lead. Kumar says, what? Avar salkadaita. Avar salkadaita. You're going to use lead. It's kosher. That means that the cipher that's teaching him how to sign already signed it already, because he used lead, which is good for ink. You can't. It has to be something that's not good.
Maybe meant lead like a lead pencil, where you just kind of.
Like graphite?
Yeah, and then, well, originally they
So
were.
take a look at
before
what
graphite, they were lead.
it was lead, right? So it says lekasha haba avra haba mayad avra. It depends what type of lead. This was really the water of lead. It wasn't really a permanent thing. Okay, Rabavo Amar b'mei milan. Rabavo said that you can use gallnuts to sign the. Batani Rab Chanina kasher made tarya v'after it's kosher. How could Rabavo said that the cipher can do the stencil for them to trace with using this gallnut. Problem is that that's a kosher signature, so that he already signed it, and he's not one of the witnesses. It says like kasha. It depends how the paper was prepared, how the parchment was prepared. If the parchment was also prepared with the gallnuts, then you can't recognize the gallnut signature on it. If it was not prepared with gallnuts, then gallnuts is a good signature. Because the way that the parchment was prepared, you have to sign differently than what's the natural color of the parchment. It'd be like sometimes this paper that's like off-white. You can't use an off-white paint on it that you don't see anything, right?
The Hanina had a lot of gall.
I hear you.
What is gallnut?
I don't know what gallnut is. It's some sort of nut that gives off a. It's related to a walnut. It's apparently it's a color. It's used as for coloring, and I think we've had it also places that it's used like something acidic, that it's used maybe to in the tanning process.
From the oak tree.
It's from an oak tree.
Nut galls from the oak tree, one of the earliest richest source of natural tannin.
Natural tannin. It was used in leather, preparing the leather, or parchment. Okay, Rav Papa Amar Baraik. Rav Papa says they used the spit, the saliva, to write it, and then it would see like a faded mark on it, and then he could fill it in. Rav Papa le Papa Tura. Rav Papa told Papa Tura Baraik. He said you should use the saliva to make a stencil for the safe for the Edom that don't know how to sign. Bahani merely begittin. When would we use stencils for Edom that's only by a get? But by regular documents, go find witnesses that know how to sign. Don't use like just anyone that. Why by a get are we lenient to use anyone and make a stencil? Because sometimes you have to do a get in a rush because the guy is running off and there's a guna. We don't want the woman to be left, so we're going to rely on leniencies to get the signatures done. There was a person of the Bishar starts when Rav Kana actually gave him lashes because he was making other documents and he was using people that didn't know how to sign. Tani Kava say the Rav. You have a proof for Rav. It says like this: I'm sorry. Witnesses that don't know how to sign. You can make a stencil for them and they fill it in with ink. Amar Rab Shimon ben Gamliel, Rab Shimon ben Gamliel says this is only by a divorce document that we can rely on this. But if it's a deed of manumission, freeing slaves, or any other document, then we don't rely on this. We have to get witnesses that know how to sign. Only if they know how to read and sign. If they don't know how to read and sign, you can't use them for other documents. Who mentioned reading? You just threw that in there. That had nothing to do with anything we were talking about. We were talking about signing. It's missing words. You have to add it in like this. We had this Gemara once before. Witnesses that don't know how to read. You're allowed to read before them. And if they don't know how to sign, then you fill it up with ink. When do we say you're allowed to do this? This is only by a divorce document. But when it comes to freeing slave or other types of documents, if they know how to read and sign, then good. But if they don't know how to read, but they don't know how to sign, then you can't use them. So Shimon ben Gamliel throws in this extra thing. He argues on the Tanakama. Amar Rabbi Elazar, my time with Reb Shimon ben Gamliel. Why is Reb Shimon ben Gamliel being lenient by the Gittin, but not by other things? He says it's a special heter, so that Jewish girls should not be left as an aguna, tied women.
Excuse me. A few days ago, didn't we say the specific items and reasons that Shechur Abadim and Gittin were analogous and not others? What didn't we have a whole thing about delineating that? And this was never mentioned. So in the
No, that was a comparison by Gittin to deeds of manumission, of freeing the slaves. Now we're saying this is only by a get, not by a Shechur Abadim. We had a whole comparison where a get is similar to a get Shechur.
Right.
And not anything else. Now
right.
this is
so
only
why do we have to even bring this up?
No.
It's not anything else.
Oh, when we brought this up before?
In other words, this is superfluous because we said nothing else. So now we have to mention this.
No, that was a similarity. Before we were comparing get and get Shechur. Now we're saying it's only a get and not a get Shechur.
But don't you learn like the converse from
No, that was more. We were saying other things, other documents are also included. Before it was get and get Shechur are similar, everything else is different. Now we're saying get it's on its own, and get Shechur and everything else is different. Yeah. Amar Rav Halacha Reb Shimon ben Gamliel. Rav says Halacha like Reb Shimon ben Gamliel. Rav Gamda Mishmei the Rav Amarein Halacha. Rav Gamda says that Halacha is not. It's not like Reb Shimon ben Gamliel. Well, come on. So who do you want to paskin like? Rabbanan? You're going to paskin like the Rabbanan? What does that mean? The Kishar stars when Rav Kana gave lashes to someone that allowed other documents to use a stencil. Tirgama Akriya translated this that it was talking about that he said that the halacha is like Reb Shimon ben Gamliel. The halacha is not like Reb Shimon ben Gamliel. He allowed people to read to the witnesses that couldn't read. See, there's two statements of Reb Shimon ben Gamliel. One was that you can only use the stencil on a get, not on anything else. He comes along and he says the halacha is not like Reb Shimon ben Gamliel. The other statement of Reb Shimon ben Gamliel was that you can't read to them; they have to be able to read it on their own. So he says the halacha is not like Reb Shimon ben Gamliel. What does that mean? He allows other to use stencils on other documents? He said no. That means he allows you to read to them. Okay. Rav Yehuda mitzdar b'kachasim. Rav Yehuda was old. It was very hard for him to read, and he would mitzdar. He worked hard, and he signed. My father-in-law told me that he had an uncle that when he was old, he was blind. And he would look at, he could see the top line of the Gemara. He couldn't see the rest of the page because he couldn't see it. Only the top line he could see. He says it was good that he knew most of it by heart. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to get through it. He would just see the top line and he could get through it. Yeah, it's the old school.
Did he tell you that joke before you married his daughter or after?
Yeah, after. No, but this was old school. They learned by heart. They learned the Gemaras by heart. They knew it well.
And upside down.
Right. So Amalei Ula says to Rav Yehuda, like tzrichas, you don't need to pain so much. The Rabbi Elazar Maridar the Israel, Rabbi Elazar the Great was the leader of all of Israel. Karu kamei v'chasim. He was also old. It was hard for him to read, and they didn't have magnifying glasses. So someone else read it to him, and it was fine. Rav Nachman Karu kamei sifri daini v'chasim. Rav Nachman had the cipher would read it for him, and he would sign it at the end. He couldn't read. Dafka Rav Nachman sifri daini dislayemsa. It's only Rav Nachman together with his own scribes. Rav Nachman sifri achrini, the safri achrini. Rav Nachman with other scribes. Sifri daini v'inish achrina loy. But other scribes, but the court scribes or someone else, then you can't trust them. In other words, you have to be able to know that what's being read to you is 100% accurate. They have a lot of stories of when it comes to politics. They go to old rabbanim and they get them to sign documents that this is no good, this is puzzle, that's puzzle. And what does it say? And they tell them, and then it's like a corruption a little bit. So you have to be able to know the person that's reading it to you, that
you can trust.
You can trust him. Yeah. Rav Papa ki aviyasi lekamesh tara parsa David Berkashel Kutim, where Papa, when a Persian document would come from a Samaritan court, Mikrilu Shnei Kutim, he would call in two Samaritans or two Gayim. It was really Gayim. He would call them in separately, and he would ask them, he would ask them to read. Just tell me, what does it say? He would call in separately so that he would make sure that their stories matched up. He relied on it so strong that he would even collect from mortgaged property, would consider this mortgage on property, and he would collect from people that had purchased this property because he relied on these documents. Ravuna Bar Nassan told me that Ameimar said, this that we had this Gemara before on Daf Yomi. If there's a document that's signed by Jewish people that's written in Persian, you can use it to collect. Problem is, but they don't know how to read Persian. How did they sign on it? It says b'diyadi. They knew how to read Persian. But they don't use the right ink. They use ink that could be erased. It says no b'dafitzan. We're talking about that the parchment was coated with something that if you would start erasing, you would see right away that it was erased. But we need to rewrite the summary of what it says in the document right before the signatures on the last line, and they don't do that. It says b'damahada. In this case, they did do that. Well, am I kamashmalan? So then, what's the chiddush? The kolash and kasha. You're coming to tell me that it's allowed to be written in Persian. You think it needs to be written in Hebrew or in Yiddish? Tanina, we have a Mishnah that says that clearly. If it was written in Hebrew, and I think Yiddish is Hebrew, or maybe it's some other what they call it. What was the old ancient languages? Not Sumerian. That's Akkadian or something. One of those. Ved of Yavanis, but the witnesses signed in Greek, or Yavanis Ved of Ivris, or it was written in Greek and they signed in Hebrew or whatever. It is kosher. It's kosher. So you see, it doesn't have to be written in Hebrew. It says Imahi, if that would be if you were just telling me that Mishnah, Gittin, I would have thought that in Gittin it could be a get could be written like this. But other documents need to be written and signed in the same language. Kamash Malan is coming to tell me that it doesn't need to be written in the same language, even by other documents. It doesn't need to be signed or written in the same language. I would have thought that it's interesting. I could have written a get in another language and signed in Hebrew. But other documents I would have thought need to be in the correct language because there's no rush over there. There's no takana sagunas. So kamash malan that even by other documents it's no problem. Okay, let's leave it over here, and I'll tell Moshe where we stopped. Have a good day. Shvot tov.